Hello,
That's a challenge.
everyone.
Hello. How's duty?
Pretty good. Still in DevLearn recovery,
Oh, I bet. I
but at
bet.
least it's not COVID.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, how was that experience?
it was good. It was pretty chill for DevLearn. Intimate even, which is not usually a adjective that I'd use to describe DevLearn. But it was much smaller than usual, and it was good. It was good. It was kind of PeBl Pro's launch, in a way. I mean, we were already out, but it was kind of a launch regardless. And it was fun. It was really fun.
Saw some old friends, I imagine.
Yes. Lots of catching up with old friends. And I had two sessions and one morning buzz to facilitate. And there was a project that I was helping out with that was in Demo Fest and actually won its category. So that was really
Oh,
cool.
that's
Wow.
great.
That is
Yeah. So I'm sorry, did somebody say what was it? Or
cool. Well, I'm
Oh, that's-
interested.
Yeah.
Well, Emily Wood did a branching scenario for Design by Humanity on recognizing microaggressions in the workplace. And she actually built it with PeBl Pro, which is why I was helping out. It was all text-based, but it won the immersive category, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah,
That is cool.
and hopefully we'll be able to like post it soon so that people can kind of go through it.
Actually, I have. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the Pebble Pope things you invited me to this week.
Yeah.
But I actually have it on my to-do list to reach out to you and see about doing a demo for Ford.
Yeah.
We're expected to be up and running next week, starting November, with our LRS and in proof of concept mode. So
Okay.
we have a few, job aid kind of materials that I was wondering if we could get a temporary Pebble Pro account and do some examples just to show them what it does, what it looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
We actually had there are webinar recordings out for both of the ones that we did this week, and I am sending out those follow-up emails right now, actually.
Okay. As we
So,
speak, I'm sure.
yes. Um, so I don't know if you're on the list for both of them, but I can certainly make sure that you get both of those.
I did register for both of them. So
Okay,
yeah,
all
they
right.
should be there.
Cool. Well, I'm trying to make sure everybody is actually on the list and that my zaps are working correctly and everything. So, yeah.
Judy, can you post a link to your product, please?
Oh, sure. No, I'm keeping it a secret.
Well, I'm Googling PeBl Pro and I'm coming up with cool resurfacing, so I don't think that's your.
Oh no. Okay, I'm sorry. I just put it in the uh, Slack, but here.
Oh, there you go.
Chat
I see it in
works, too.
Slack.
PeBl. So you have to know how to spell
Yeah.
is the issue. You have
Yeah.
to know how to spell in the new, the millennial way, I guess, or something. It stands for personalized ebooks for learning.
Yep.
Cool.
So I will start a share here. And I just put together a quick agenda. We can take a look at it and see what we want to add, but I think we can already add updates from DevLearn. Thank you for that.
And I didn't get to go to any sessions, so I can't even, tell you if
Really?
there's cool XAPI on. Yeah,
You
I
were
had
in
to
the
work
booth.
Yeah, I had to be a booth babe.
There you go.
So whenever I wasn't conducting a session, so
Yep. So what I had just sort of put together while I was doing the update. Are you seeing my screen? I'm getting a spinning pot of death. I think they call it
We
Spot.
see your we see your notepad at
Okay,
Xcpr
good.
cohort team.
I guess it's just Notepad that's got to catch up because it wants to push everything out to my iCloud. I wish I could turn that off just here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is what I thought of as I was creating the update for the cohort session. Was we could talk through the xAPI profile primer. I don't know if I should be saying primer or primer. I remember back to Jodie Foster in Contact, and she said primer, so I want to use that term.
It's primer. Primer is paint.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, primer. Thank you.
But primer sounds very prim. So
Yeah,
I think most people like to say primer
yeah,
anyway.
it does. I'm still learning English. It's my second language. So,
I think
just
we're
kidding.
all still learning.
Exactly. So the outline presentation details is the other thing we want to talk about. And it looks like from what I saw in the session, the schedule, they consolidated all the groups to the 18th, and the xAPI party is on the 10th. So it's all on one day, no matter what. So let me ask you two: are there other things we should add? What else should we be talking through? Is there anything else that brought you in the room today? No? Okay. So I won't drag it out then. We'll just jump right into
Is that November 18th? Like we only have 3 weeks to do this profile.
yes, but
But I think that's
we
enough.
I mean we need
We
to
have
sort of talk
groundwork.
through that with you, and I guess that's the thing is what we want to do for that. So we'll put you on the schedule, and I think you're going to wind up being the focus as long as your timing is available. We can focus on what we want to do because this document we sort of brainstormed it, and it's been part of the goals to talk about what to do for using profiles as opposed to creating one. And
Right.
part of the document is there are some references out there for creating one. So the other thing I need to do when I get my feet under myself, I know Henry already saw it in the last meeting, but I'm going to drag the PDF of this out into the chat. So Judy, you can get a copy of it and use it as reference. And I'm just doing that fairly quickly so you have that, once we leave, you can look at it at your leisure rather than where is it kind of stuff. It's also out there in our GitHub, and I push links to it on the update discussions and in GitHub and Slack. I put it in Slack as well.
Yeah, I
So-
saw it.
Okay, good. Okay. Well,
Good.
you could have saved me some steps, but that's all right. So the idea of the document is for somebody like me and Henry who are looking at projects where you're not creating a profile, not writing one, but actually using them, locating them, using them was really the goal I had behind this. And Judy, you just sort of expanded the mindset by coming in and say, hey, I need to create one of these things. So
Well, in a China shop, that's me.
yeah, but that's all right. I'm in the mode of that's good. I would have thought to expand it a little sooner. There, now we can read it. I know you two didn't say anything, but I was having trouble. So I put in there who we are, what our goal is to build a reference document for locating and using profiles, as I mentioned. Links to our discussion page. The idea is I want somebody who finds this in the wild to be able to loop back and find us. The challenge is if I have this right, just to click on that link, if they're not already in the cohort, if they're not already in the cohort organization, and they're not already in a GitHub account, they have to go through and do all those things. So the idea is here's where we're at, but if you need to do this.
Yeah.
It's sort of to me, those are big hurdles for somebody just getting started. But the truth is we're trying to make the document out there as a PDF available, and if either of you want it, I'm more than willing to share it with the authors in a Word format, and the idea being you can customize it, but I'm not planning to put the Word document out there in the wild, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there's a section on how to read it, and I'm basically reading it to you, so there's not too much. But this is the whole document, the layout is based on what Jason shared with us as the profile, the human readable version of the profile. So I just use some of these sections and repurpose them with the focus of the primer. It's going to take me a while to adapt to calling it that, but I'll try. The other thing to talk about is this section. We want to let people know what the priority is in terms of where they should look. So references for vocabulary, profiles, and the tin can registry. One of the things we talked about is there are still a lot of references to this, but we're showing people this is out of date. The other thing that Jason mentioned is truly the vocabulary server is also no longer recommended that people should be using the profile server. So, this came up, Henry, I think you may have joined the last meeting afterwards, but somebody mentioned, oh, we should go there and look for verbs. And I said, wait a minute. That's what prompted me to share this in our last meeting was they were all looking at this page. And I said, well, from what Jason tells me, and he's one of the authors of the profile server, the goal was for the profile server to actually replace the vocabulary server, both the tin can and the ADL one.
Okay.
So we have a link to that's now the recommended approach. And then the other thing that I was hinting at earlier for Judy as a user guide and authoring guide, but to me, the user guide is a misnomer. Specifically for your use case that you want to use the ADL profile site to build a profile and publish it, this is on point for that. But for me, someone who wants to consume profiles, it's actually more of an authoring guide, but they also use that term in the other documents. So I think they're sort of challenged in their terminology. I don't consider it to be user guide to be accurate, but there are two documents out there that you should look at. That's sort of the point of that section and reviewing it with you. And then the fourth system we mentioned is the Torrance Learning's interpretation. They call it the Learning Profile Flattener. And I talked to Matt a bit in the chat and in dialogue fashion about this. And one of the things he's mentioned is they are using the ADL profile server via its APIs. So they're talking to that server directly and pulling data from it. So in a sense, it's active, it's live, it's looking at the same data. So it's sort of an alternate user interface. So I'm listing it here, to help promote them and to mention that. But the other things that, as I talked through the document and talked through with some of the individuals using the profile server, is there, like the vocabulary server that's no longer recommended. You could go see a list of all the verbs. You didn't have to go into one window for this profile and another window for that. The challenge is both the profile flattener and the profile server as it is now, you can only see one document's worth of verbs at a time, and you can't compare. You can't say, I want to see exited from any source. You can't do that kind of search. So I'm sort of thinking that those are some of the limitations that we might bring up as we get to the end of the cohort and talk about lessons learned. That might be something we feed back to the ADL. The other thing that Jason mentioned, though, is that contract is no longer active. It is the site is published, it is being hosted and maintained, but there's no longer active development on it. So even if we come back with that feedback for the ADL, it would be a while before they could implement any changes to it, which is, again, another reason to talk to Torrance Learning, because they actually are active, more active, I would say. It's not an outside resource to them, it's an internal resource. So if you get Matt interested in hearing what you have to say, he may go in there and make a change in a day where the ADL may take another contract cycle to get that done. And I'm not even going to guess. Henry can probably give feedback on what that timing might be. It's probably more than a year.
For the ADL, um,
Yeah,
they would have to. I think that BAA process, is that what you mean, to
yeah,
reactivate? And yeah, they have to go. They have to go through some kind of bidding process unless
yeah.
they could add it to an
It's
existing contract.
not a small thing. So this next section gets into what I talked about in the last meeting was when to use a profile. And one of the things that I present as a concept is I really think we want to recommend cascading them, and I'll sort of elaborate on that. Um, so generally, when to use a profile is if you're trying to decide what verb to use in a particular instance, I'd say you want to sort of step back and look at the larger view of what selection of verbs are out there already. And so part of that is the broader sense, the xAPI implementation guidelines from the Navy are a good place to start and get your footing and to see what kind of documentation they put out there. We put a link to that file. I didn't really elaborate it with pictures at this point, so that might be something we talk about doing to improve it, because this description is really all I'm giving them. But go look at it and take a look at that for implementation guidelines. And then the next one is the common reference profile, and it's in a similar stance, but the common reference profile builds on top of the implementation guidelines, and there are a lot of recommendations in the CRP, if I can call it that, that it says go look at those implementation guidelines and use that information. So the implementation guidelines get into the nitty gritty of actor verb object and what a statement structure looks like, what kind of URLs you're using, where your servers are located, a lot of that infrastructure data. And then the common reference profile says, okay, we're going to use this for video, this for audio, this for opening files. So there's a lot of details around some really broad uses. And I'm struggling to open a document off screen here because I'm realizing I wanted to refer to it. And it's been a moment since it's been talked to, so I'm getting the spinning cursor again.
Can I talk out loud for a second?
Go ahead.
So I'm only coming up to speed on this, and thank you for creating this PDF. So in terms of what you did here, is it's a good tool, and it also oriented me to take another look at the profiles, and I didn't know the history of some stuff not being used anymore. But so once you're, as a designer, determining who your target, maybe if I was working with the Navy, I would be definitely using their library. But I pick through this and find the verbs that I'm using from the different profiles, and then that's part of my design. But then the other way, is Torrance using it when they say a flattener, because the LRS, given those verbs in some way where it's trying to do a report, would go retrieve the purpose or definition of that verb and create nicer reports. So you're kind of pairing the two together, right? That's the glue that's happening.
I don't know if they're planning to use it that way or are using it that way now. I haven't seen that. I mean, it's one of those challenges. It's like I mentioned, it's an internal tool for them, but we're seeing the public view of that, and what they've made available is, to me, very symmetrical to the xAPI profile server. So I didn't get a clear understanding of why they created it and what the long-term goal is, other than I think one of their concerns is, well, if it has the stability issues that the vocabulary server has, I want some kind of reference locally that I can see when I can't see that tool. And I'll be honest with you, I did the same thing. I went out and built a database of all the verbs on the vocabulary server at one point, and now I have a database of about 780, I think it is, where I can see that list that you can't see on the other tools. And that, do the comparison. I can do a find and find multiple instances, multiple versions of the same word, and that's part of, I've mentioned that's part of the functionality that I see is missing. But it's not coming up. So this document is a graphical outline, if you will, of the common reference profile, which is why I wanted to bring it up. And I'm thinking at least I want to put like a table of contents or something like these graphics in the primer, so we can see that information.
Mm-hmm.
And I just switched applications again, so we're sort of scrolling. But the idea is within, this is referred to as section 2.2 of our document, but within 2.2.1 of the common reference profile, it talks about opening files. Actually, it talks about files in general, and then certain actions on the files: opening, uploading, downloading, and closing. So
I
the
want to
idea,
make a couple of this because I would be able to link all of these things. But anyway, go on.
I'm sorry, I just paused because I'm not sure I heard you right.
Oh no, I was just saying I want to make a PeBl of this so that
Oh.
I can so that we can link things through.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile.
Never mind, go
I
on.
think we could do that. So, continuing on in that document, it talks about opening, closing, viewing, printing, and exiting pages, using menus or accessing menus, and then accessing individual items within the menus. It talks about links. I guess there's not really much to do other than opening them, but that's where we're at now. And then like and dislike buttons. And even though they're in the same section, I separated them out in the graphic so you could look and see that's the section I need to find for like and dislike. And then the rest of them, everything else is in its own subsection. So video and audio, we talk about initializing, playing, pausing, seeking, completing, and terminating. So within the common reference profile, we're doing all of these actions. We have all these verbs defined as common. And that's, again, I'm talking about it as a tiered structure. So that common reference profile to me sort of takes some of the guesswork out of which verb should I use for these kinds of things. And then the other thing I think we want to recommend, and at this point this is a proposal to the team, and you guys are helping me review it. And I'm sorry, Peter, I saw you, I just saw you came in. Do I need to backtrack a little bit? Maybe his audio is not connected yet. So
no, my audio's here. I'm fine. No, I'm catching up. I don't want to hold everybody up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I had a very early meeting.
Understandable. I think you said it's actually later than it had been, so it's about 9:30 now.
It's about 9:30 at the moment.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining. So you were actually on board when we talked through the draft of this. So I'm just sort of showing what I was able to pull together, and then we talked with Lauren about her reviewing it. So I shared a version with her earlier in the day, and she might make some changes or make some additions. We'll see what happens. And then I wanted to get Henry and Judy to give some feedback on it, so that's why I'm walking through it at this point. And then the general xAPI profiles, these are profiles in their own right. But in my thinking, these are broader than just a short list of verbs, especially the DOD-ISD one and the TLA profile. Those are fairly large. We looked at the CMI5 one earlier today, but I'm going to do a quick find off screen here and see if I can answer one of my questions of how many items are in this. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. And you also notice somebody has started blowing leaves just outside, and it's surprising because it's going to be dark in moments. We're going to let that process and then move on. So again, my thinking here is the CMI5, the DOD-ISD profile, and TLA has its own longer list of verbs as well as other terminology that's included in them. So if one of those lines up with a project, lines up with an organization, I think it's worth considering that as another building block. And then the next steps are to look at specific modalities, specific file types, video, audio, AR, VR, XR. I've got those all combined right now. And then the other ones that I looked at that sort of align up with this are serious games, social media, possibly performance support. I've got a bit of a question mark next to that. And then virtual patient is also a very focused area, but I'm not sure it's exactly the same type of object as what we're talking about with the other ones. Any questions or comments on where I'm at now?
Um, Moving back just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sorry, I should have been asking for each section. Where do you want to see?
No, where did I? Okay. Certain titles have been identified as outdated and should be avoided. So basically, if verbs are sort of claimed within those profiles, your recommendation is that we should kind of ignore and what the definition of those verbs is. That kind of what the
Oh, I know what you're asking about.
yeah, back on page 8.
Was it page 8? I wasn't sure what page.
Very
8
bottom.
was. Okay. So I'm still a little ahead.
Because we talked about, I think a few weeks ago, about how, I think it was activity streams had claimed this huge number of verbs and probably not, the usage was not necessarily useful. And so, are we essentially ignoring those? I mean,
I think that's Peter's recommendation. He was the one that talked to us about activity streams.
Right.
And then Jason talked to us about the tin can vocabulary as being outdated.
Right.
So
I mean, I don't have a problem with saying that at all, but I understand that that's not always, I mean, it feels
Peter?
delicate.
Are you able to see this text and comment on it?
I am,
with a comma.
and yeah, completely concur. Don't touch activity streams.
Okay.
No one endorses it.
Are there any others we should have on that list?
Look, some are better than others.
Right.
I steer away from Brindleway for a start. One thing that's a really good measure of whether they're dated is go grab their IRI and type it into a browser and see if it loads. If their IRI doesn't load, you can be fairly confident that they no longer support what's there. And that's a fairly reliable measure. Yeah,
Okay.
so Brindleway is another, but the others aren't too bad.
I am not. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing my window that had the profile server up and running. I wonder if I buried it behind this doc. Possibly. Nope. Sorry, Peter. I'm struggling to understand which profile you're referring to.
Okay, I'll dig it out. I can't remember what profile the Brindleway ones are under.
Okay.
I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I
I'll get back.
appreciate it. Let's get that in there because I'm not sure what you're referring to. And we can try and paraphrase what you said. See, I thought I understood that these IRIs do not necessarily have to resolve. And now you're saying that's a good way to test if they're active.
Well, I don't have to, but they should.
They should.
I mean, they're there for they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
I suppose, if you don't have a resolving IRI, it doesn't prevent you using it. But let me just say, it prevents me using it.
Yeah. So yeah, Judy, that was exactly what I was referring to as that conversation you were online for, the activity streams and as well as the tin can vocabulary were mentioned. And I sort of see that as a bit of a speed bump for somebody trying this, trying to locate a profile or determine what they should be using. So I just wanted to
Okay.
Like an
document
active
that.
group policy at work.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
So, go ahead.
I think it would be helpful to be clear that our recommendation here is if they do not resolve correctly, they should not be considered claimed or authoritative or something along those lines, and that we're avoiding the we're not avoiding those verbs.
Yeah.
We're those groups of claimed verbs. I just feel like this is an area where newcomers, they're doing their due diligence. They're trying to see if verbs have been, defined and claimed. And, this seems like a very helpful piece of guidance that if, it says that if they've been quote unquote claimed, but they're under any of these titles that, they should not be considered definitive or authoritative.
Yeah. I realize it's sort of, soft worded.
Yeah,
I mean, my first instinct is to say if they do not resolve correctly, the profile may have become out of date.
I mean, it works for me.
Is
yeah.
Am I being overly passive?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think the fact that we are giving this guidance at all is a good thing because that's not something that people are going to know. They will get the guidance to look up verbs and try to, do their due diligence and do that. And so, I think it's a good thing that we're pointing this out at all.
Trying to provide some guidance.
Yep.
And I'm getting sort of a delay while it loads that.
Yeah. So I mean, even with your primer, and I was looking at profiles usalearning.net. It took me a while to trust or to relate this is sanctioned or supported by the ADL-net. It just doesn't have it in the header. It doesn't have it in the domain name. It seemed like somebody's side project until I kept poking around.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the profile server?
Yeah, it doesn't have like in the top header
Right.
It has in the footer ADL.
Yeah.
But I had to look for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember doing that too.
Sorry, I actually had been really keeping my ear to the ground this spring and then through summer, trying to figure out if the profile server had launched because I wanted to do a PeBl profile and I wanted to sort of do a little bit of promotion around it and help the ADL promote the project and such. A little bit of inside baseball, as it turns out, is that this project ended in conflict. And they may not have done as much of a announcement or release or whatever when it actually launched.
Okay.
Because there was drama around the release and the completion of the project. That's the best I can
Okay.
say.
I appreciate you letting us know. I certainly understand you want to soft pedal a little bit because
I
think
know all of
who
the
you're talking about.
I know all of the people involved, and
Yeah.
I want to, but there was, and I'm not even, I don't. It doesn't sound like anyone thinks that the ADL did the right thing in this case. So just to be clear that I'm not casting aspersions on Silvers or on Jason or anybody
Right.
that. It appears that the ADL screwed this a little bit. So. A lot. So anyway, that might be why there isn't the big hoo-ha that you would imagine for this project that's been in discussion and that they've been touting for a couple of years now. Just saying.
That explains some of the backstory.
Yeah,
That's a shame. Okay.
I'm here for the scuttlebutt, if not any of the serious stuff.
See, one of the things I'm doing right now is just opening them, and CMI5 is not that huge, but the DoD ISD one at 425 to me seems detailed, if not excessive. But of course, the challenge is what I'm not doing is looking to see, if I look at that, how many of them are native to only DoD ISD.
Yeah.
And this is also scary, as while it's loading, it says there are none available. But it looks like to me most of them are unique.
Oh, you know what? I can throw into our expired profiles actionable data book.
Yes, you
That
can.
I feel like I can speak definitively about that one. That was the early name for the PeBl project. And I wish that it hadn't been migrated over to the server, but I never thought seriously about trying to get it taken down. So yeah, we have made changes in the verbs and a number of things, and obviously we're going to put up a new profile. So
IAO
data book.
word is telling me I have the words wrong. Actionable. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a made up word anyway, but ABLE, something like that. Data book.
Wow. Okay. I keep clicking on this one, thinking I'm clicking on the other browser, and I'm not. But I was in the midst of scrolling through that, seeing how many of those ISD ones were unique, and it appears that most of them are. So there we go. ADB profile.
Yeah.
I don't need all of that, just this. Something about having people watch while you do something like copy and paste.
Really is.
But yeah, this way at least I'm getting the actual term, the authoritative term. Is it doing what I expect it to do? No.
It got there eventually. Zoom has a way of taking over your system resources.
Yeah. Well, the challenge is I'm trying to get it to paste without
Right.
the
Without
link, and Word defaults to what can I do to you instead of for you.
yeah.
I wish that was a setting. Make Word nice. And then I also want to look up the TLA one while at this point. And hey, we happen to be in a good place for that. So it says 66 concepts, but it also has more detail than the others. And this is a chance for the browser to do something to me instead of for me.
We built a storyboarding tool and we snagged that DoD ISD profile as part of
Henry,
part
I'm
of a
not hearing
WIS.
you very well.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, we built a storyboarding tool, and part of the tool was to craft a learning objective, and we snagged that DoD ISD profile for the verbs in terms of letting the author help think about what they're asking the student to do. It was pretty low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. You know, the other thing is I don't know. Well, we sort of did it up above, but I was contemplating, I really want to put the common reference profile in here because it is a real good example, but the truth is what I need to do is up in that section sort of elaborate like we are here how much detail is in there, because Jason really elaborated it. It's got templates, patterns, and concepts defined. And these two appear to be, the TLA and the common reference profile, appear to be the few that really show that level of detail. And that's one of the things that we did last week, was sort of walk through what's in the templates, what's in the patterns, and look at all those details that are buried down here that If they haven't created them, they just aren't available. And as a user side of things, again, I'm searching for profiles with that mindset. I want to see this detail, but only a few of them have it. And there's, when you're on another screen back, I think I didn't open this one in its own window, and that is biting me. When you're on here, it only shows you views and exports. I'd really like to see the detail about each of them, of how many concepts they have, and that level of detail. Just copy those fields and put it on each line for me. And that would help me start looking at, okay, this one seems really well populated. Let me go look at that one first. All right, back to this. So we added in actionable data book. Were there any other comments we had? We good with this?
It looks great to me. Sorry to take us backward.
Oh, no problem. You sort of reminded me I wanted to elaborate that other detail. I'm not going to go do that here, but to me, it's not a bad idea to sort of show what detail there are for each of these. And I'm thinking I can do that all the way through. Go ahead.
Back to modalities. Are you considering, like e-learning as a modality, or, of course, e-learning could include audio and video,
right,
and stuff like that. So I noticed you were kind of question marking about performance support, but I would consider both performance support and e-learning kind of as modalities, but those not, of course.
Well, that's the question mark is, does it belong here in 2.4, or should it be higher up in here as general?
Well, there is no e-learning profile to my...
right, it's the SCORM one. Or I
well,
avoided that.
I guess essentially it would be under CMI 5.
Yeah.
So I guess then could we apply that to performance support? Would performance support adopt the CMI 5 profile?
I mean, I don't know at this point without trying to dive in and evaluate further. I'm more than willing to move for performance support up and to put others in up higher. I'm not opposed to it, because I was sort of on the fence about that one as well.
Right.
Would that make more sense to you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you have a specific authoring tool that has its own profile, how does that, how do we categorize those things? You know what I'm saying? So like, for example, video could be a modality on its own, or it could be an element of e-learning. Different tools. So for example, PeBl Pro could be used to create performance support, or it could be used to create e-learning. Right. And so how does that, I'm just here to make things complicated.
It's already complicated. You're just, just entering the discussion, and I've got nothing wrong with that.
No,
I didn't consider, how do we talk about individual applications and authoring tools? We don't. We haven't yet in the document.
Most authoring tools aren't worth it. I mean,
not yet. But and once you, I don't know why you're sitting on it, but once you get your profile published, I'll certainly put it in here.
Well, I haven't had anything to do, Brian. I'm just being lazy.
I know. I was just pushing back a little bit.
I do need to get going.
You've just been lounging in, was it Vegas for DevLearn?
Yes.
There you go. Spending your time at the slots. But yeah, if you need to get going, why don't we scroll on through this a little further, and if we can, and get at least get you to look at it all the way through.
No, I'm good.
Okay. But I do agree. I'm not sure that performance support is, an individual modality or a larger ideal. And then the idea is that once they get through and narrow down to those modalities, the next step would be then define a custom vocabulary. The group we were in earlier, and I've seen this with other teams, they jump to this. It doesn't fit any of the other concepts. Let's just define our own. And for PeBl, I certainly see you doing that. I don't mean to point that out. And actually, I use you an example. Hopefully, you're okay with that. Um,
Well, it was not PDF annotator. It was the actionable data book. The
yep.
actionable data book project became PeBl. Um, um,
And I still can't write it. Actionable. BLE.
3 words.
Yeah, I knew there was a reason I wanted to finish and make sure you saw this, but I couldn't remember exactly where it was. And if you have concerns, I have no problem taking it out. But the idea was to give them
No, that's
some validation. If you're creating a product, you definitely want to consider a custom vocabulary. If
right.
you're creating an authoring tool that's doing multiple modalities, yeah, maybe you do want and I could see Storyline or Captivate or any of these tools, if they upgrade themselves and do this natively, which I sure hope they all will, I could see having a profile for them. Not that I would enjoy it, but I think a lot of the developers would see it as validation that they're doing something for the industry.
Yeah.
Any comments? Any changes here?
Only that data book is 2 words.
Oh, it is. Okay. I'm fine with that too. And then, we sort of talked about it. Once you create the customized vocabulary, if you create one, you should consider publication as a new profile. So I'm committing that you're going to do that. If you want to revise that statement and make it you plan to.
Yes.
Yes, you want me to revise it?
No, it's great.
Okay. And then finally, we talk about making selections. So once they access the profile, an account is necessary if they wish to have the editing abilities. I'm not sure why I started off with that. I'm questioning both of those statements. I think reviewing a document was too static. Peter's dropped. So any comments or questions on these paragraphs? Are you guys reading or are you?
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Okay. I'm not sure the first couple of sentences really say what I mean to. Part of it was I think I had this section and the next section early on, and then I wrote a bunch of what we've just gone through. So these, it looks to me like they might need to be reviewed and revised a bit. So, are you ready for me to scroll? We're almost done. You can see the scroll thing at the bottom here. I think this is the end. Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. JSON LD, right? So that is what is that? The JSON version of the
Yes.
vocabulary.
So if I come into a profile on the profile server, I thought I had one open. Nope. There we go. And you hit download. You're actually downloading. You see how it says JSON LD over there? So, I mean, from my perspective, it is a more formal version of a JSON file. It's a little more strict, but the other advantage is if you go to a browser and type in JSON-LD validator, there are tools out there that are online in a web page that you can copy and paste that file into, and it will tell you there's a space where there shouldn't be, or there needs to be a comma here. They can actually give you feedback on the format because it's more strict. It's able to be validated on on a number of tools on a number of levels. And I think that's really the value of it being JSON-LD.
Yeah, I just
But
might add a sentence above that the electronic, I guess it's JavaScript, is that object notation something? I didn't know at first what that was.
yeah,
Being unfamiliar.
okay. So actually we start here. And I think it's JavaScript, like you said.
Yeah, like here's just, I'm looking at Wikipedia now. JavaScript, I'll paste it in whatever.
I think it's linked data.
Yeah. Is that you said that was the vocabulary file or dictionary for the chosen profile?
Yes. So one of the things I talk about here is when you look at the list of verbs, and we sort of touched on it, but when you look at the list of verbs, and this is actually a bad example because it's mostly in the internal to the profile. So CMI5 is really short, so that's a better one to look at. But yeah, no, it's fine. Okay. So this column here shows where that verb originated. So that means these terms came originally to the server from the CMI5 profile. Down here at the bottom, there is one that is linked that comes from the SCORM profile. Mm-hmm. So if we look at that one, for example, it will have a URL at the top and a mention. This is a linked concept. It's defined by another profile. And because I have authoring capability, there's this thing that says remove link. But it's, that's not really the norm. But the idea is the concepts list all 14 of them, but the truth is there's 13 that are original to the profile and one that is linked. Well, when you click to download that JSON LD, you only get the 13 that are original to the file. In this example, the majority of them are downloaded. In other examples, there are 3 or 4 that are original, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, that are linked. So you get a really short JSON LD file, and I looked at it when I got that, and I went, well, where's the rest? And it literally took me weeks to try and recognize that they weren't giving me the related terms, and actually had to confirm that with JSON when I talked to him.
So to be compliant with using this profile, you would use all 14 verbs, but only 13 of them are uniquely created for this profile.
Right. So in what they consider to be the reference JSON, you're only getting those 13. You're having to build that 14th one on your own, or go into that other profile and pull it down from there. But if you do that, you're getting all of those. You're not getting just the one you need. So
that's weird.
Judy's earlier comments about there may have been a little consternation when this was being finished up and published. Somehow I'm not surprised to hear that, because it really confused me when I started looking at that. And
feels like there are some loose ends.
There are. So, and I think, I don't want to get into the personalities, but I think part of it is, the timing of the government contracts versus what's that scope and what really needs to be done turns into a challenge. So let me go back so we can wrap up our document and get Judy out of here. And actually we're sort of on a timeline for an hour, so we're going to try and wrap up. But does that help, Henry, with what you see here at the end?
Yeah, because I'm all fresh, and that's kind of where I had that question there. So, and I can see where this is going to help somebody taking an initial look at it like it did me. So, okay. Good job.
So the only other change I made to this is I did include your names, and I added an authoring section based on what we did last week, meaning who was in the meeting last week, and now I don't see it. there's the version control. Are you kidding me? I did exactly what I didn't want to do. I edited. There it is. Okay. No, I panicked. So I've got myself, Laurel, Shatan was on last week. I don't need to be in there twice. Seriously. Peter, Judy, and Henry. I'm not seeing names, but any concerns about spelling on the names?
Not me, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's part of it, but I don't see why the fonts are different. That's always fun.
Word is concerned about what it can do to you.
You're going to use that, aren't you?
I'm all right.
I give you free reign. I do not own that. But it helps for me to verbalize my concerns, and Word is one of them. So I'm going to save that and close that up. And if I get any changes from Laurel, I'm going to incorporate those and then go around and produce an update. The other thing I wanted to switch to was my the one? Nope. I had a document with our agenda on it. There we go. So we want to talk about your building your profile. Is that what we should focus on for the next week?
Yeah, I actually just created an account and a working group. And so I was going to ask who wants to be members of the working group. And Brian, I already looked for you. See your email address here. So I'm ready to add you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And Henry, would you like for me to add you too?
Sort of see how it works.
I'm kind of saturated, but I'm not sure. If you add me, I'll try and look into it and screen it. But honestly,
you were in the room. You were in the room. It's okay. You can get credit for this.
All we're going to do, Henry, is use that information next week when we're on the next call. So,
okay.
I think next week we'll be focused on reviewing the human readable template and seeing if we can't, give Judy a running start with that.
Awesome. Yep. If I can make it, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Great. So I'll go ahead and ask in the Slack channel who wants to be added to the working group.
Okay.
And so what do I need to? I guess I'm going to kind of look ahead and see what information needs to be gathered. We have a spreadsheet of the verbs and how they're used that was created by the PeBl cohort team a couple semesters ago. I can take it for action this week to check with our engineers and see if we've changed anything.
Yeah, you should.
That way we have that ready to go. Not to jump straight to the verbs, but and I think those have already been vetted by the existing profiles, but that might be something that I can fit in this week as well.
Okay.
Now that we have those readily available on the and I can add to the spreadsheet, if it's actually referencing a verb in another profile and that kind of thing, because things like completed I guess would reference the SCORM profile. It's being used in the same way, etc. So I can try to make sure all of the verbs are vetted and they're linked to existing verbs if they're where it's relevant. There are definitely ones that are.
Okay. I just jumped into Word and I'm opening a copy of that template just in case we want to refer to it. I mean, this is how the document starts out. So how to read, conformance, optional requirements, when to use, how to use, and then concepts, verbs, activity types, extensions. So most of, I mean, this is the outline table of contents. Obviously, most of them are empty tables at this point. But I think part of what we can do. Do you have a copy of this, Judy? If not, I can put it in chat.
I just downloaded it from the chat, but if you'd
Awesome.
like to upload it or again or put it
It's
in
a different one.
It's
The
a different
one
one.
in the chat should be the one that we looked at for review. The one
Right.
that I'm showing you now is the human readable template.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, you
So
switched.
that's all right.
Yeah.
So let me throw it in there as well because you're the one that needs that document. And there it is. Sorry, I'm off screen for a little bit while I find that. Readable template 01. There we go. And that way you're not hunting for it. You can have it now. And the idea is that it just gives you a running start. So one of the things that I did in my other version was to replace what it looks like they generate a table here. And I think I'm not sure if I built a style in this document or if it's in the later one. It looks like it's a style. Good. So we'll just test that theory.
Oh, you're using Word on a Mac.
Yeah. Sorry. Is that confusing?
No. I just.
It's also an old version. So, yep. So.
Wasn't even aware that there was a new version, if there is.
No, this is 2011, I think. So part of the challenge is everything's been updated. But, you know, if you just want to print out a copy and scribble through it, but like I said, these are just tables that are ready to go as you start to define things. And then for the most part, it's a fill in the blank kind of thing. But a lot of the stuff earlier, you know, he literally left these as fill in the blanks. But a lot of the stuff earlier, you sort of want to review and say, do we need this? But Jason has put this together as a running start for someone like you who's building that profiles. So I wanted to make sure you had it.
That's great. Yeah. We can start
Okay.
there. And did you say you'd like to use the team meeting next week?
Yeah, I'll just put that on as the agenda item. This will be the other agenda item. Is what do we want to present? My thinking is we sort of did a rehearsal tonight, walking through that profile is a part of what I would present. Sorry, the primer, the profile primer, and the other part is, if you're comfortable with it, is talking about creating a profile and you know, possibly showing a demo of the authoring side of the publishing or of the profile server. Stumbling over my words, but some of what we did last week that you two weren't on board for was looking at the common reference profile as a document, as well as a common reference profile, this Navy common reference profile, as a profile in the server. And that might be another piece of what we could present, because the value is when you get into this as a document, these statement templates are here, and that gives you a chance to say, what does that look like, and get the details for accessing a menu and showing there's actually code in here that you can copy and paste out. Mm-hmm. It's also in the human readable version, but one of the things I mentioned that I ran into is if you copy it out of the PDF or out of the Word file, you get extraneous characters. If you come in here to this example statement and grab it from here, you're not causing that issue. And like I said, when Henry asked about the JSON LD, is one of the things you want to do is take that, copy it, put it in a validator before you start working with it, because that way you know, is my source having errors? And what I did was I pulled it from Word, and the first thing I did was find errors, because Word puts in returns when it wants to.
Right. Also, I'm going to try to get our lead engineer on PeBl, Mile, involved.
Okay.
In the group and in the cohort, if he can manage to do that. So that way there's less back and forth and there's more knowledge about the actual inner workings of the code here. So seems like a good idea to get him involved.
Okay. Is he on India time?
No, he's in Los Angeles.
I'm sorry. Is he Eastern?
No. Well, I mean, the name is, I think, Slovenian.
Oh, okay. I should have asked if he's overseas. I'm sorry.
No, but he is in LA. He's actually even in my time zone.
And what else do we talk about? And so I'm just typing up the notes of what I said. Hopefully I got it somewhat close. The sequence is still debatable, but I think this is what we walked through, doing a demo of the profile server, and part of that would be to compare the common reference profile with the document with its online profile, and then the demo of the authoring capabilities. That would probably become later. What we want to talk about, and we'll be able to use PeBl if you're comfortable with that. We'll want to talk about the need for creating a profile.
If you use that profile document because you have a need for yourself and you submit it, there's someone that judges whether you're worthy or not to get the profile.
I don't know that they judge it. I believe they just approve your working group, and once you do that, you can publish.
They're the gatekeeper. Okay.
Judy, do you know?
I don't know, and I don't see anything. I mean, I created the working group. I don't see anything that says, you're waiting on approval or anything like that. So,
Right. From what I mean, Peter sort of did a walkthrough with me when we were on. I can't remember if Judy was there when we were on Team Down Under, and he showed us some of the authoring capabilities, and they actually had created one with one working group, and then Peter recreated it under his user group as a working group. So they literally created a profile that had already existed, and once he already had the working group in place. So he could go in, create the profile, add verbs, add links to existing verbs, and publish in one session. He didn't have to wait for additional approval. Meaning, once you have a working, I'm interpreting that to mean once he had a working group up and running,
You
he
can
had the
manage
authority
it.
to publish a profile.
Very good. Okay, very nice.
I think we want that there. So that's really what I wanted to cover for today. I appreciate you both sticking with us and going through some of the details of the documents. And like I said, I think our agenda for next week will be to review the outline for what the presentation details might be looking like, and then what do we need to do about Judy's profile. I think those are the key things.
sounds good.
If I could type.
Doesn't look like I can delete working groups. If I wanted to. Okay, but I can change. I just put in the website, but I'll make our place that we collaborate the xAPI cohort Slack
Okay.
or GitHub rather.
Yeah.
So, um,
I mean, you know, if you I think it might be worthwhile if you create a Slack group for profile authoring. I think Team Australia did for their geolocation profile, but it's specific to this profile. You could create one that just says, you know, profile authoring, and what we talk about for this cohort is PeBl, and next cohort they could be building a profile for something else. You're
Yeah.
also welcome to do that in the existing. You know, I don't mean to push more work at you.
Oh, I don't want to.
So, just thoughts on how we might address it. Like I said, we can. Yeah, I'm fine if you want to keep it in the xAPI profile discussion. That'll be a good.
Oh, it does
archive.
look. It does look like there are profile states. A draft is visible to only the members of the working group. Published is public, and then there is a verified state. A profile version that was reviewed by the administrators and deemed of high quality. Working group members can issue a request to have their profile verified by the administrators. See update profile status. That's here.
There you go. So it's optional, but you can have it reviewed.
Yeah. And I don't know who the administrators are.
From what Jason said, he is one of them, and I think Aaron has told me he is another.
Probably, yeah.
Alrighty then. So, sorry we ran over, but I think this is probably a good place to stop, unless you have any other comments, questions.
Thanks for
Party
Yeah.
thoughts.
facilitating. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you both. We'll
Till next week.
talk to you on Slack and see you next week.
Adios. Bye.
Yep. Almost did.